Hello and welcome to the talk How You Can Contribute to High Quality Enterprise Documentation. My name is Maike Schabowski and I'm the documentation strategist at the SUSE Business Critical Linux documentation team. And I prepared this presentation together with our team lead, Frank Sundermeier. Before we dive into the session, let me start with a question. So, what is your estimate? How many pages of documentation does the documentation team provide and maintain for the current Linux products alone? Think a bit about it. I'll give you some second. So, do you think it's 5,000 pages, or probably 8,000, or even 10,000? Well, counting just the active product versions and those in English only, we provide roughly 12,500 pages of Linux documentation. This is quite a number, right? Well, during the next 45 minutes or so, you will hear about the who is at your service here and what kind of documentation we provide for you. Here we will put a focus on our new approach to modular and adaptable documentation, which we call the Smart Docs. Going forward, you hopefully get an idea of how SUSE documentation is created. But most importantly, we will then also show you how you can get involved in the creation of all the different types of documentation or documents. But first, I invite you to meet the documentation team and hear about our mission. We understand that documentation is an essential part of a product, above all when it comes to software. Unfortunately, this opinion is not necessarily widespread. To the contrary, I recently heard people discussing documentation as being just a cost factor that could be outsourced because it's not delivering any return on investment. And not too long ago, I had a conversation with a consultant who said every software should be so intuitively usable that no documentation is needed. That would be perfect, of course, but we are not living in a perfect world. Most products are not usable without good documentation, especially complex software products suffer from missing or poor docs. When you work in an IT department and you are responsible for a functioning environment and smooth processes, this impacts your daily work and eventually even the success of your business. So, our high flying wish to the entire open source world is document all the things. We try to contribute our part. Our high demands to ourselves are to produce and deliver high quality documentation and localization services. This is to provide added value and to drive our customers and partners and community satisfaction. There is a broad variety of tasks covered by the doc team. Here's a quick overview of our key responsibilities. In roughly 2 minutes, you will hear more about the pure documentation categories like the classic style product documentation, the release notes, or SUSE best practices, or even the technical reference documentation, which is quite new also. But let's have a look at the bottom here of the slide first. We maintain our own toolchain for writing and publishing documentation. This might become important for you when you really plan to contribute to our docs. Thus, we will explain it more in detail going on also. Then on the top right, you see something called the Smart Docs. These are our next generation topic-based and modular technical articles. Of course, we are going to share more information about the Smart Docs during this presentation. And finally, we are also responsible for the translation of content, or better, for the localization of our content. Our localization colleagues care for centralized, organized, and managed translation activities for all the product and solution documentation, and they also offer translation services for our marketing teams. Now let's have a closer view at the documentation categories we provide for you. I mentioned it. First, of course, we provide the so-called, or if you want to say, classic style product documentation. This usually means the product guides and manuals, such as quick starts, the admin guide, or the deployment guides, you name it. This is still the biggest part of our work. Then we have the product release notes. Release notes are written to inform our users about changes to the products, usually for new product releases or for updates. The release notes briefly explain new features that are added or issues that are resolved and several other improvements. They are not a replacement for detailed guides, but a first go-to source for technical information. Then we have the SUSE best practices. This series of documents consolidates the scattered pieces of information, best practices, tech notes, and tribal knowledge that contributes to successful implementations, especially of more complex solutions. They provide reliable technical information that is not covered by the SUSE product documentation. Since our SUSE best practices are topic-oriented and solution-based, they should serve as an addition to the user reference guide. Best practices may cross product boundaries and may incorporate information that is related to non-SUSE products where common integration topics crop up, for example. So they can include, but are really not limited to, a specific, not prevalent, but repeatable setup, the installation of third-party software on top of a SUSE product, the implementation of a solution consisting of several products, a step-by-step procedure, a newly tested procedure, a proven process or methodology that is not yet covered by the product documentation, and so on and so forth. There are many, many, many topics thinkable and possible for the SUSE best practices. The SBPs are not written by the documentation team and also not always written by SUSE employees. In fact, contribution from customers and partners and from community members are more than welcome, and we encourage them very much because the solutions are done by you, implemented by you, and you are the experts here. Best practices are adapted from implementation and usage experiences. The documentation team then edits, proofreads, finalizes, publishes, and promotes the articles or the documents here. Content can be provided in virtually any format. The finalized guides are currently published in HTML, single HTML, and PDF versions. SUSE technical reference documentation is an open collection of high-quality guidance for solutions that address real-world use cases with featured SUSE partner and community components. The documents are modular, the sources are freely available and open source licensed in the GitHub repository at https://github.com SUSE technical reference documentation. You see the link also here on the slide. The TRDs can be generally divided into 4 types. Getting started guides provide a solution introduction with step-by-step guidance for installation and configuration. A reference implementation is an introductory architectural approach and the basis of the deployment of a solution with a SUSE portfolio. A reference configuration combines reference implementation with specified partner hardware and software components, usually. And the enterprise architecture provides an architectural overview of a solution from an enterprise landscape perspective. What you see here is our landing page for the technical reference documentation and one example of it. The TRD is currently owned and created by a group of SUSE experts from teams closely collaborating with technical contacts from SUSE's most important technology partners. These are ISVs and IHVs. Also here, community engagement with the SUSE TRD is really encouraged and very much appreciated. Now I'd like to introduce you to a new approach to documentation at SUSE. We call it the Smart Docs. Looking back in history, SUSE was always well known for extensive high quality documentation. Back in 2000, when SUSE came up with the very first enterprise Linux in the market, we provided several thousand printed pages of guides and manuals together with the boxed products. But requirements did change over time, and digitalization pushed hard already. And since 2010, we offer our manuals for download and for online reading. In 2021, we enhanced the online appearance of the documents for a better user experience, and we introduced a new three-column design and several useful additional functionalities. But we also listened to feedback from our customers and partners and from the entire ecosystem. We conducted several documentation surveys to see how requirements are changing, and we are further working to adapt the docs even better for your consumption. The findings from our doc surveys of the past couple of years mention ease of use as one major point of our users. Another requirement was to focus more on the explanation of specific solutions and on use cases and their explanation. Even if huge monolithic product manuals and guides are still useful and have a right to exist not only as a reference and might never completely vanish, we realize that they might be difficult to consult and mainly during your daily business, you cannot really go through an entire book or so and try to find the respective parts that are important for the task you are at that moment performing. With the Smart Docs, we started a project to address these new requirements, like the modular operating system itself, our adaptable Linux platform. Modular documentation building blocks are much more flexible than monolithic guides, and they match also SUSE's focus on solutions. When challenged with organizing docs into tasks, our first priority lies with the user and not with the product. Thus, we try to write in a way that helps you complete a task instead of lecture you about the product. We try to focus on our readers and users' needs and not on the product's features here. And we aim to instruct our users how to solve a problem and not just how to use the product interface. Really, one of the feedback was, don't tell me how it works, tell me how to use it. And that's a very important takeaway for us with regard to the creation of the smart docs. Our goal is to move more and more towards a modular documentation approach. Most readers refer to the docs when they encounter a specific problem, The docs usually are the first instance for self-service before reaching out to support or consulting. Providing solution or topic-based information will definitely speed up productivity. Another important aspect for modular documentation is to improve the navigation. This helps to enhance readability and makes consumption of topics much easier for you. And finally, we also want to simplify and enhance the search results and the search capabilities to improve usability for you. Small articles have better search engine results than huge manuals, and they can easily be consumed by artificial intelligence tools. We already see that our smart docs articles rank higher in Google search, for example. So in future, when you are searching for content or for help, you hopefully will have the respective information quickly at your fingertips. What you see here now is an example for a SmartDoc article or an assembly. At first glance, you get an overview of all important information for a certain topic. And from there, you can dive deeper into all aspects of the topic. In this case of the system D timer, the entire PDF version of the article consists of 19 pages. This is much easier to handle than trying to find and read paragraphs and snippets in a manual, and probably even in different manuals. So, usually, an article consists of three main components. First, we explain the underlying concept of a feature or technology. Then you get instructions how to perform a certain task, so step by step, I mean. And finally, you get all the information about basic facts like the settings, parameters, etc. Here you see a high-level timeline for the modular documentation project. So, of course, prerequisites are all done. We started migrating existing content. We have already available the adaptable Linux platform core documentation in a SmartDocs format, and we provide category navigation. The status of today is we published the first set of articles, including the art topic documentation. We are currently working on the search capabilities and functionality. So we want to provide on our homepage, on our landing page, filterable search and enhance all the navigation capabilities. The front end will be rebuilt and localization will be made available by click. And one big thing that we also want to provide for you is more interaction. So we would like to um, give you the option of creating a My Library. Here we create a dashboard for. Then we will provide rating options like thumbs up, thumbs down, or 5-star rating or something like that. This is in the works. And you will also get a news feed about what we added, which articles are new, what manuals or guides have been updated, and so on and so forth. Now let's have a look at our workflow and the tools and processes we are using for the creation of documentation. As I said, this might become mainly then important for you if or when you plan to help us with the docs, if you want to really contribute to the documentation. As I joined the doc team as kind of an alien from the outside several years ago, in my first life at SUSE, I was a product marketeer. Let me share some thoughts. I assume, just like me in former times, not many people reflect on how documentation is created. But I never had expected to find such a well thought out and uh, streamlined workflow. I tried to visualize it So what you see here is an overview of our workflow. It might look complicated, but you will see it's really very well thought out and easy to follow. It all starts with a documentation request. Requests reach us via different channels. We have Jira, the project management tool for features and requirements tracking for our products in general. Documentation is a part here. Um, we also get requests via Bugzilla, the bug tracking system, which is used for our products. You can request enhancements, but also new documentation components via Bugzilla. And of course, there are many other ways to reach us or request documentation, even if it is via simple email, for example. Now we create the infrastructure in Git. Git is our standard version control system. It's a free and open source tool. Hope you are familiar with it, or I really assume most of you are familiar with it. It supports distributed nonlinear workflows, and Git is also used by our developers for developing the code and versioning the code. We use GitHub as our hosting server for our document sources. It follows a branching model to avoid collaboration conflicts. All repositories for the official SUSE documentation are publicly accessible. You can really go there and have a look and see what we are working on. It's all publicly available without any limitation. For our purpose, Git is the perfect collaboration and versioning tool. We usually write the content for our documents in DocBook XML, which is the main document format for us. I had to learn it from scratch when I started in the documentation team, but I am really a huge fan of it. It's ideal for the modular structures of our documentation. And even if you have to invest a bit more time for your initial document to understand how you should tag the content, you benefit later because updates or changes are so easy to execute. However, as we work with contributors that are not familiar with DocBook XML, we adapted our own toolchain and are able now to write and proceed ASCII doc documents just the same way as we do for DocBook documents. Guided editing is used in our XML editor as DocBook and ASCII-Doc do not include editor software. Each team member has the free choice which editor to use, be it a graphical or a command line editor, it doesn't matter. The variety of editors is really, really huge and ranges from Oxygen and Emacs to Sublime Text, Vim, JEdit, to many, many others. It's just a matter of preference here. Now, where do you think does all the information for the single pieces of software come from? I was always under the impression that all input comes from the original software developers, and my colleagues just and only would need to write down the stuff in an understandable way. But I quickly learned that would be in the ideal world. Reality is different. Software development has tight schedules. Developers are under pressure. Their first priority is to deliver their code in time. Developers are genius in writing code, but not always and not necessarily in explaining it. In addition, ready to use documentation usually is delivered in parallel with the software product and in several different languages. What does this mean? Well, all of the essential guides, quick starts, how-tos, and articles need to be written and ready for translation minimum 8 weeks before the general availability of a product. My docu colleagues had to learn how to deal with that, how could I say, the lack of information flow. And they made a virtue out of necessity. They started to download raw software code. They set up their own virtual machines and they installed the work in progress products themselves and tried it out and checked and tried different things just to be able to document the software from there. Today, this is their usual procedure. They have become real experts in getting up and running semi-finished software products, understanding complex technical context, finding bugs, even working on turnarounds, and even in writing their own software tools to help them reach their goal of providing excellent documentation. The XSLT style sheets define the layout we use when we transform our sources into the output formats. Our style sheets have been written by our own teammates for different kinds of documentation, book and article, for example, we use different layouts. You can see some example here. Left hand, for example, you see the layout of a large guide. In this case, it's the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server Admin Guide. And this is the HTML format. You see also the three-column layout here, left-hand index. In the middle of the page is the content, and on the right side, you see what you can read on this page here. And also you have the feedback options, sharing, for example. Um, Top right, you see the cover page of the admin guide as PDF version. It's in book format. A book usually has a cover page followed by a page with a table of content and an abstract before the actual content then follows. At the right bottom, there's the cover page of an article. We currently use the article layout for quick starts, SUSE best practices, technical reference documentation, and the smart docs. Now let me introduce our superstar, Book Authoring and Publishing Suite, DAPS in short. This tool helps technical writers in editing, in the translation, and in publishing the entire documentation that is written in DocBook XML and in ASCII-Doc. It's a command line tool for any modern Linux system, not just for SUSE. This helpful tool was invented by our team lead Frank Sundermeier, and it is released as open source. DAPS lets us publish our sources in several different output formats. I already mentioned HTML, HTML single, and PDF. We can also do EPUB, text, and man pages, for example. DAPS supports the DocBook style sheets, as well as our custom layouts, which I showed before, to generate the output formats. DAPS also allows us to manage several key tasks related to writing and editing, like collecting the files that should go to translation or running additional tools like a spell checker or a style checker, for example. So have a look yourself. You see the URL here. If you write, if you want to publish documents yourself, check it out, try it. During the entire writing and editing phase, we are frequently building the document via DAPS. This helps us validate the documents for correct links, references, spelling, and so on. We have our own SUSE documentation style guide and several tiny little automated assistants, such as a style checker that supports us to follow our own rules and policies here. We build the document in all different output formats to ensure everything looks good. And of course, we have several iterations of peer and tech expert reviews also. Yeah, we could say we kind of partly stick to Stephen King's motto to write is human, to edit is divine. In any case, it's a big part of a technical writer's job. Our entire publication workflow and processes are built upon tools that can be automated. We work with Git source versioning and editing. I explained that before. Nearly everything is scriptable. We do not use any manual formatting for the docs. We can create multiple formats or variants from a single source. And via DApps and our documentation server, we use automated publishing for our internal reviews, which are automated daily builds in English only. We use it for externally available drafts, mainly for the SUSE beta program on HTTPS SUSE.doc GitHub.io, and of course for the official SUSE documentation website at documentation.suse.com. You see examples here from the official website and from GitHub.io, where we host the drafts on another server. Up to now, you learned about the types of documentation we provide and the workflow and tool chain we use. But where do you come into play now? How can you contribute to documentation? We will dive into that during the next few minutes. Having spoken about the SBPs and TRD previously, we'd like to invite you to contribute to these special series of documentation. You are the experts, and we heavily rely on your know-how and experience. So the best practices mainly are really documentation about implementations that are already in production. So please suggest your topics. You might already have information available which others might be looking for. Be a vital part of the open source community. And be assured we share all documentation under the GNU Public Document License. So everyone can access it, use it even for their own purposes, reuse it, rewrite it, as long as they follow the rules of the GNU Public Document License. The benefits are really huge. You can share your experience and you can benefit from the knowledge of others. You will respond faster to new requirements and you can increase your own customers' satisfaction when you rely on the experience from others. You can learn faster about new technologies and you learn how to implement them yourselves. Help us create joint high quality technical papers and use them then for your own purpose and distribution. And last not least, you can use our promotional machinery and we will help you increase your visibility if you want. Working on new SBP documents or articles is one option to collaborate with us, but you can also work on existing documentation and contribute your enhancements and ideas. So let's start with the product documentation. You see here a section of the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server Admin Guide online. This is the HTML version. Every HTML version of any product documentation features collaboration buttons or icons. This icon you see here with the warning triangle stands for report an issue. If you want to report any issue, be it a typo, a missing sentence or a paragraph, or a missing or wrong command, you just click this icon here. And you can directly report your issue in Bugzilla. A Bacilla page opens, a bug report opens for exactly the section you clicked the icon. Most fields here are pre-filled. You only have to add your description or missing item here. You see it. So product, component, version, everything is already clicked or pre-filled. You give the summary if you are not okay with the summary abbreviation or title that is written already here. Our example is what is the shell. The summary issue is called what is the shell, so usually it's fine. In the description, what is the shell, you see the URL of the snippet of documentation, and here you can fill in your description. For example, I found a typo, or please add content, you forgot to explain XYZ, and so on and so forth. Please provide as much information as possible. Then click the Submit Bug button on the bottom you see here. We will get a bug report and we can fix then the issue. If anything is unclear, if we need to talk to you, we will reach out to you and clarify if anything is unclear. For reporting an issue with a Smart Docs article, just proceed the same as for product documentation. A Bacilla report is created also here. For SUSE best practices and the technical reference documentation, the report an issue icon works a bit differently. When clicking the icon, you are directed to GitHub issues. Also here, a pre-filled area opens in GitHub where you can detail the problem or the requested changes or enhancements, or write down the missing content, whatever is needed here. The issue will then be reported to the responsible repository owner and to the assigned technical writer. The other small icon which you see on top of each HTML section in the product documentation is the Edit Source Document icon. If you dare to edit directly in GitHub or in DocBook or ASCII doc sources, this button brings you directly into the respective section of the source document in the GitHub repository. Just click, you see it here with the icon, and on the right side, just click Edit to access the source. Make your changes inside the content. Highlighted here is something in yellow, just one sentence, which is the sentence that has been added in DocBook XML. To preview your changes and see the difference between the previous version and the new version, click Preview and a window opens. You can see it here. On the left side, in light red, there is nothing. On the right side, in green, is the added sentence. So you can see what your change has been, what it looks like. If you are happy with your changes, click the green Commit button on the top right. You see here, Commit Changes is the name of the button. This brings you to the commit message section. You see here on the right at the bottom, more or less. Here on the slide, you need to add a brief title for your commit message. Please provide also a more detailed description of your changes. So the commit message you can figure yourself. In this case, I wrote edit brief explanation to admin shell XML, and the extended description is this description helps beginners to understand the importance of shell, just to make it more detailed. Click then create a new branch and give your branch a name. In this case, we have Schabowski patch 1. Give a name that makes most sense for you. Then click propose changes, the green button at the very bottom here. This will create a pull request, and this pull request is sent to the responsible technical writer from the documentation team. And please don't worry, you cannot do anything wrong here. It's not possible to commit directly in the main branch. It's not doable. You cannot, it will not do it. You always have to create a new branch. We will always review your changes before we approve the pull request. And in case of questions, we will always reach out to you to clarify. By the way, the edit source document icon works the same way for the best practices documents also. As we work with two different main document formats, let's have a closer look at the edit option in GitHub for both formats now. Of course, you can also access a document source directly from GitHub if you know the name of the document, and if not, we can always help you to find the document in question. So here on this slide, I have already opened directly from the GitHub repository one document source in DocBook XML on the left side and one in AsciiDoc on the right side. You see it here. So if you want to change content here in the source, go to Edit, write your sentence. In this case, it's highlighted in yellow. Just the small sentence, read the following paragraphs very carefully. Then go to Preview to see what you are, what the changes look like, what you did here. Go to Commit Changes. This will bring you down to the commit message. Write everything that is required here. Create a new branch, give the branch a title or a name, and propose your request. That's quite easy. Now edit in AsciiDoc. It's really or nearly the same. Go to the source, click Edit. This brings you directly into the document. Add your respective sentence and then go to Preview. You will see the document in AsciiDoc is directly rendered in GitHub already. It's really already, you can read it more or less clear text. It will not show images or pictures, but you can read the text rendered very well. If you are okay with your change, commit the changes via the green button on the top. Once again, it brings you to the commit message, fill in every details that are needed, propose the changes, and you are done. It will create a pull request, which goes to us, the documentation team. What you see here is a list of all the publicly available documentation repositories. You can check out them yourself if you want. You can contribute directly from the repo if you dare. If not, just use the icons I explained before. We are happy about every or any kind of feedback you want to provide for us. So let me quickly summarize the key takeaways for you now. At the end, there are many options how you can contribute to SUSE documentation. Most important, however, is that we really hope contribution is made easy for you. That's our hope. If you want to give feedback to existing documents, you can simply use the report issue or edit source buttons. And if you now feel inspired to work on best practices documents or smart doc articles with us, no matter in which format you want to provide your content to us, be it Word or Open Office or pure text files, PDFs, ASCII, email, or anything else, we just take them all. And if you want to give feedback about our documentation in general, propose a topic or contribute a SUSE best practices paper, please don't hesitate to contact us. We also just started a new documentation survey to gather your feedback directly, and we would appreciate your participation very much. You will find it on our documentation homepage at documentation.suse.com. You see the link here. There's a link to the survey. The survey is hosted on Qualtrics. It's an external tool we are working with. You can write an email to the documentation team at doc-team@suse.com or directly to me, Maike Schabowski at suse.com. You can submit topics via Bugzilla. If you do so, please, I said it before, please provide as much information as possible within the tool, or simply reach out to your SUSE account or partner executive. Believe me, they know how to find us. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your time and your attention. I hope you have fun with all the presentations. I hope you enjoy SUSECon. Thank you very much, and bye bye.